Hey, here we go with this special report on election night. That is right, election 2024. We are here. If you are watching this, you may be watching this tonight, or you may be watching it the very next day when we have already elected our president. But I just wanted to take some time out. I know I had created a video a couple of months ago about Kamala and her chances of winning the election. So it's only fair that I would create another video tailored or around Donald Trump. So many places we could go with Donald Trump's chart. But for tonight, I really only want to focus on the difference between, for him, I guess you could say the difference between 2016 and 2024 in terms of his chances of being elected, especially, just basically his chances of being elected, given he's been elected before and everything that he's been going through as of late. So let's start here. So what's working in his favor or Kamala's favor? And that's the first thing I want to talk about because it has a lot to do with what I said in Kamala's video. And if you have not had a chance to watch it, I highly recommend that you watch it. I'll put the link below as well so you can take a look at it. But in Kamala's video, I talked about her chances, and part of it was centered around her solar return chart. So if you don't know what a solar return chart, simply a solar return chart is the chart that we get every year around our birthday. So we all get a new one on our birthday. And I look at hers and I've looked at Donald's. What I want you to know is that in 2016, when Donald Trump was elected, he had what is called a yod in his chart. In 2024, he doesn't have a yod. But in 2024, Kamala has the yod in her chart. And so that, amongst a few other things, made me think that there was a chance that Kamala might have a little upset here and might win the election. For those of you that don't know what a yod is, it's an astrological term for a major configuration that takes place in a person's chart. Basically, it looks like a long triangle. So you have two planets at the bottom, the base of the triangle, that form what's called a sextile. Sextiles are considered good, or chances of opportunity. And then they form an aspect to another planet that's all the way at the tippy top of the triangle. And they form the aspect called a quincunx. That's so hard for me to say sometimes, but that's what it is, a quincunx. And both of those planets form that to it. So that's, a quincunx isn't exactly positive, I would say. It's kind of one of those minor aspects that people don't talk about a lot. I know I don't talk about it a lot. Only in regards to the yod do I talk about it. And the yod is pretty important, and that's why I talk about the yod, because many times you will see it in people's charts when they have times of steep lows or steep highs. I see it in a lot of steep highs, like usually when a person does something extraordinary or remarkable, you might see a yod in their progress chart or their solar return or yearly chart. Okay. And another thing to take into consideration is the yod is usually cumulative. So that means that it's something that the person has been working up to. It may feel like it's sudden. It feels very sudden, but it's actually not. It's almost always something that you've been working on for a long time. It's usually not even days or months. It's usually like years. It could be 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. I've seen 10, 11 years where something comes to culmination with a yod for a person in that year. So that gives you an idea what the yod is. And so for me to see it in Donald Trump's chart in 2016, it made a lot of sense for me to see that, because there had been talk about Trump becoming a president years before he actually, I guess you could say, took it seriously. Whereas here in 2024, yes, now he's been a president and now he's rerunning. For Kamala, she's not a president, she's a vice president. She's ran for the ticket before, for a Democratic ticket. So for her, this would be something that is cumulative, something she had been working towards year after year after year. And so that's the first thing that I noticed. Donald had the yacht in 2016. Kamala has the yacht in 2024. Okay. The question now is, does he still have a chance for winning? So as of now, they've started, the polls have closed, and they have started calculating, what the electoral votes for both candidates. And currently Trump is ahead. It's quite a bit ahead so far. As far as the votes that they are assuming for him, right? But will he win? I always say anything is possible. Well, most anything is possible. There's a chance he may not win this time around, but we already know he has a pretty strong base, and that counts for a lot for people. And so when I look at his 2016 compared to 2024, in 2016, I would say his chart wasn't perfect, but even back then, I could tell that he was going to win. It just seemed pretty obvious to me. He had one, what I call progressed square with Venus. So you know how I mentioned earlier about the sextile, and that's supposed to be good. A square is actually challenging, but a square is not always the end of the story. So the reason for, by the way, progressed chart is just moving a chart forward to today's date. That's what a progression is. Simple as that. So the reason why this progressed aspect square with Venus is so important. Venus is in his 11th house, and 11th house rules people that approve of us, love received, as they say it, friends, it can be fans, just basically people who support us. So Venus is pretty important for him, especially in terms of things that he's doing publicly, such as politics. So it squared his progressed ascendant. When an ascendant rules your personality, your self-expression. And note, his progressed Mercury is in a Jupiter decan. So if you had a chance to watch my video about Diddy, that's the first time I've actually talked about the decanates. And the reason I mentioned that is for his progressed Mercury in 2016 to be in a decanate for Jupiter, or what I like to say, a sub-ruler, Jupiter, says a lot about his communication. Who can forget his wordings at that time, words like bigly, things like that. He had a unusual way of expressing himself, and it stood out. And so that to me reflected what he was like back in 2016. So even in 2016, it was clear that everyone didn't approve of him, but his progressed sun conjunct natal ascendant overpowered that. So how could that happen? By the way, the conjunct means that they were in the same sign, basically same degree. This is important because, as I mentioned in other videos, progressed ascendant to MC. It doesn't have to be progressed. It could be the other way around. So the ascendant midheaven or MC connection is often visible when you see someone succeed at something. It's really often. If you watch the back to the videos, you know that happens almost all the time. Major events when people achieve something significant. And so Trump had this in 2016. So I almost feel like that was his trump card, no pun intended. So progressed sun conjunct natal ascendant. It's also important to note that Trump is he is a rising Leo. So the sun is important to him anyway, because the sun rules the sign Leo. And for that to be involved in that aspect, that progressed aspect, that was even more important to him, with that ruling his rising sign, which rules his chart, and for that sun to be located in his 10th house, which rules career and status in the world. So even though that was just one aspect, it was very easy for that to overcome whatever challenges he had in 2016 to becoming a president. All right, so when it comes to 2024, which is where we are now, he had a couple more squares. He actually has a couple more squares. There's including 2 with his progressed Venus. And so, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, Venus is very important because it's in his 11th house and it rules his associations, his fan base. So anytime that planet is either under attack or under stress, that's going to have some impact on his popularity, I guess you could say. I hate to use the term popularity with Trump because I feel like what Trump has goes beyond popularity. But both of the squares that he has, they involve planets in his 11th house, suggesting challenges with approval. But again, that's something that's not new for Trump. Progressed Sun sextile natal Mercury is one bright spot for him. But the squares this time around point to a higher mountain to climb than the first time, which has been pretty apparent this year that he had a higher mountain to climb with this. So what was the conclusion that I'm coming to? I don't want to make this too long because I want you to be able to get back to checking in to see how the election is going as far as the tallies go for the votes. But the conclusion I came to with this is, as I said, anything is possible. However, there are some leanings towards the election ended up going towards Kamala. Based on that, and even based on some things that I have seen in the chart for the United States. And by the way, yes, the United States does have its own chart. You can look it up online. I may do a video about that as well. But just due to some changes the country has been going through. And even though the country has been going through some changes, knowing that a lot of these things are phases and they're going to come and then they're going to go. I wonder what part either of these candidates will play in that. Because I have not looked at everything, but I have looked at some things related to the country's chart. And it's interesting. I've come up with some other things to see in terms of the impact people can have on this country and how they succeed in this country. I think using the United States chart is really actually telling as to how people succeed here. But that's another story. In a nutshell, definitely looking forward to seeing who ends up winning. I think it's probably leaning towards Kamala, but we will see if Trump overcomes these extra couple of challenges he's had this year. Thanks for listening in. Feel free to leave a comment. I know everybody has their particular candidate that they prefer, and that's fine because these videos aren't about specific political party. I'm just looking at each person's chart to see what the likelihood is, what challenges or positive things they have leaning towards them winning the election. So thanks for listening in, and until I make the next video, I will see you next time.